Hi everyone, and welcome to our presentation about analysis of deep learning methods for cybersecurity in Industry 4.0 for the International Conference on Applied Physics, Simulation and Computing in Venice. We would like to lead you to our short agenda for today. So we would take some time to explain what is Industry 4.0. Then we would go to the window being specific cybersecurity challenges and attacks. Quickly, we would speak about artificial intelligence, deep learning, and the legislation around it. Then we would go to the preventing the cyber Q chain in industrial control systems, speak about our data set and training and how it was created. Then we would present the final results and we'll conclude. At the end, we would have some time for additional questions from your side. So what is it about everything that we speak nowadays in Industry 4.0? As you can see on the pictures displayed, there is quite a lot of different environments and products and technologies around us, which we use on a daily basis, which are currently involved into the Industry 4.0 aspects. So all of them we have seen and we're using on our day-to-day basis. So that's the reason why it's quite important that we keep these industries secure and protected so that we can get our daily life secured and working on an excellent manner. By saying all of that, on the next slide, you can clearly see that it's all of these different industries and systems and technologies are quite interconnected to each other, which of course adds an additional layer of complexity, how they can be protected and how they can be jointly protected once they are being connected to each other. So this makes the security and protection of Industry 4.0 even more complex when we add that additional complexity layer to from all the different systems. And in our particular research, we focused about wind industry, wind energy, wind farms, and how they can be attacked and exploited. We have evaluated different existing attacks, past attacks, attacks which were most theoretical, and also attacks which have happened in the recent years due to different attacking groups. And we have tried to analyze these attacks and, so to say, replicate them in a small model that was created by us so that we can evaluate these results and potentially try to create a model that we can use then, so to say, to train and eventually use that simulation to protect these systems from future attacks. So deep learning or machine learning, what is it? So basically deep learning is part of a broader family of machine learning methods. In general, learning can be supervised, unsupervised, or semi-supervised, as we can see on the next slide. And these machine learning algorithms use artificial neural networks to perform sophisticated computations on the large amounts of data. And actually, machine learning models make use of several algorithms. While there are no networks and algorithms considered to be perfect, there are definitely some of these algorithms that are better performing than others for some specific tasks. So while we were researching in the past months, we have observed and we have documented that in our research paper that there is a lack of clear definitions and standards around AI and machine learning and how it can be used. And that's why it's quite important that there is a processes and work being done in that additional direction. As one of the examples which we have observed is the very famous ChatGPT, which currently is dominating all the researcher environments, where they specifically use as part of the education of part of the training of the models reinforcement learning. So what's reinforcement learning? It's basically giving some actions and giving some rewards based on the actions which were achieved and making observations based on these actions and giving, so to say, a grading system for the performance of the actions and giving, so to say, these rewards, more rewards or no rewards based on the actions if they were in the right way or they were not in the right way. So it's In this aspect, already we can assume that people could misuse that these different types of learnings which are added to the algorithms, and that's why we strongly have described that in our paper. There is the need of European legal framework that has to address these fundamental questions about the security and the protection of the algorithms and their trustworthiness. On top of that, of course, there is additional need for the revision of the safety legislation, as additional general product safety directive for the different products which are going to be using AI natively in their so to say processes. And as we were preparing for the presentation and for the paper, there was literally an event that happened in the last days. So it's important to be mentioned that on 14th of June, there was a major event in the EU Parliament where the future legislation of AI was discussed. And there was clearly expressed the need of that harmonized standardization. In addition, there were some recommendations given, which we have listed here and would leave to you to get to know with them later. So these are all signs that actually the community and the EU legislators are moving in the right way. And this is not something only that we have observed and documented in our paper, but it's also generally seen as from the community and from the EU regulators as something that needs to be fixed. So on that slide, the next slide, you can clearly see why there is also that strong need of legislation, because there are so many different algorithms, so many different ways they can be used, maybe so many different ways they can be misused. So that's why it's very in our research, we also try to, so to say, summarize them, what's the best and what's not so good for all of these particular algorithms. And on top of that, we also try to find out which is the best working algorithm for our specific use case, which was, as we said, wind energy, wind turbines. And on the next slide, we lead you to our example attack scenario, which we have developed, which is based on the ICS cyber Q chain methodology, and is basically trying to replicate exactly one-to-one what is happening in the real-world scenarios, what the attackers are exploiting, and the different steps which they go until they finally, so to say, manage to get command and control on a system and action on the objectives. So that's really, we try to replicate these scenarios in our demo so that it can be as realistic as possible. So once we got that demo done, and once we get the scenarios executed, we capture the data, and we were in front of staying in front of the question, which model should we use to train? What's the best for our use case? So that's why we found a really nice framework, which is called Lazy Predict, which was allowing us to test the multiple algorithms simultaneously and to find the best performing for our use case and to use it. Then we use the Orange framework to fine tune, in addition, the top performing algorithms and to see even better how they can perform and fine tune some of the metadata there. And on top of that, once we were done, we just did some manual, so to say, manipulation and manual execution with some machine learning in collaboratory from Google. So basically, a quick visualization how actually the whole process was looking, the creation of the test set, the training of the set, the pre-processing, so to say, of the data cleaning and data transformation. It's quite important to be said that it's difficult to find a really clean and data transformed data set in nowadays, and specifically in our realm of research about wind energy, Industry 4.0. So therefore, there was that strong need that we perform these manipulations. So as we have presented in our some of our papers, there is these are the basic research from using the Lazy Predict framework, and based on them, we have evaluated the best model, best models, and we have so to say captured them and continue the processing with Orange framework. So in our framework, we have been, so to say, evaluating very carefully with the data samplers, and then basically creating the confusion matrix to be able to see which different algorithm is performing in which way, and based on that, so that we can choose that particular algorithm and continue some additional testing in collaboratory. So this is a free tool from a free environment from Google, where everybody can get virtual resources and a playground to test different machine learning algorithms and to evaluate their performance. And in our use case, we were able to achieve 98% accuracy with the random forest classification algorithm for our data set. And it's very important to be said that it was purely for our data set. And we have seen, of course, some, so to say, special phenomena in the data set, that we have been able to classify the data based on the origin of the IP address, where what was the originator of the attack. And of course, we were also able to do that based on the Modbus protocol and on a particular metadata from the Modbus protocol. So both of these methods, of course, have the drawback that an attacker can simulate an attack from internal network device, and of course, making that type of detection impossible. On the same time, something we have discussed as the end of our paper was also the attack against machine learning algorithms, basically the so-called data poisoning, something very famously and something very much discussed from the research community about ChatGPT and how it's being used and the different data poisoning strategies which have been applied to it and the models. So it's very difficult to predict and to train the models and to keep the sanity checks in such a high quality level to prevent the data poisoning from in so to say additional, or like someone who is manipulating, or so to say injecting to the data being used for the training. So as a final thought, in our paper, we have shared that 30% of our data used in our training was Modbus packets. And this is something which could be very much different from an environment to an environment. And therefore, we were strongly described in our use case that the data used and the model we used in our research were only applicable for our test use case, for our test setup. But we see a big potential for a further research in that area, so that these algorithms and models, so to say, are going to be uniquely working for any type of environment. For that, of course, as a conclusion, we have said that there is a very limited data. So there is a very limited amount of labeled data which can be used for training the machine learning models, and specifically data related to the Modbus protocols. Modbus protocols are quite challenging and used in a very different variations, patterns, and structures. So that variability makes very difficult for for the creation of a unique and generalized approach and model that can be used for each type of environment. And yeah, as we said, the adversarial attacks, so attackers that can manipulate the Modbus traffic to evade detection, or attackers that can potentially inject some data into the training algorithm, basically in the reinformance part of the training for the algorithms, can, so to say, yeah, confuse the defenders and make themselves, so to say, invisible for the different detection technologies. So based on that, this is what we have concluded. With that, we would like to thank you for the time to listen to our presentation. And I think we have some additional minutes left for questions from your side. Thank you.